Hi there, I am going to be canning tomatoes today, and what I am going to do is a raw pack with no added liquid, no added water or anything like that. It's just going to be, the tomatoes will just be canned in their own juice. What you need to do when you're going to can tomatoes is the first thing you need to do is peel them. And I do have another video on skinning tomatoes, but I'm going to go ahead and do it here for you quickly so you can see. I have everything set up. I have my water bath canner out here today because I chose to, I decided to do a water bath. You can do either a water bath or a pressure canner, but I'm just going to do a water bath today. This is just a stock pot filled with water that is heating up. I need to wait for it to come to a boil, so I figured I'd go over all of this first while I wait. I have my canning funnel out here, my rings, I have canning salt, and then I do have lemon juice. You'll need to add a little bit of lemon juice to your jars. It adds just a little bit of acidification so that your tomatoes are safe for a water bath. It's also used in a pressure canner, but we're doing a water bath today, so we're going to do that. Tomatoes are kind of borderline in the safety as far as the acidity levels, and so if you add that to lemon juice, then it just bumps up the safety level a little bit. So let's see, I have a bowl here with my lids. I've got my magnetic wand, my bubble tool. So over here I have, I like to use my sink area when I'm doing tomatoes. Everything's lower and it's just all enclosed in the sink, and so it makes it much neater and cleaner. Over here I just have a pot with water, and that's just where my tomatoes are getting rinsed and cleaned. And then here I have, this is my basket that I use to dip my tomatoes because they're going to get dipped in that stock pot of boiling water. And then I have another pot in here that I'll run cold water over those tomatoes after they've been boiled, because you want to cool them off. You don't want them to fully cook. You just want them to cook enough to where you can pull the skins off. So let me check this water over here and see if it's boiling yet. Okay, so the water is boiling. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this strainer of tomatoes and we are going to drop it in the water. Let me get rid of this lid. And we're going to give it about a minute or so to cook the outsides of those tomatoes, and then those peels are going to just slip right off for us. So let's just watch this, and as soon as I see those skins start splitting, then we'll take it out and we'll dump it in the cold water. Okay, I just kind of wanted to show you what it looks like in the pot here. You can see this tomato here, it's starting to split a little bit. So they're about ready. Oops, if I can get that to turn over, you could see it. And it's not going to cooperate. There it goes. See, you can see that it's just starting to split there. So that's what it looks like. Usually takes a minute, depends on the ripeness of your tomatoes. And then what I'll do is I'll bring it over here and I'll dump it in that pot and we'll run some cold water over it. Okay, so let's go ahead and get that and put it in the pot, in the sink there. And then we'll start filling some jars. And I'm going to run some cold water on it. So my tomatoes are ready to go, and I'm going to go ahead and start filling jars. I have the jars in my canner, and they're nice and warm. The water is almost boiling. It's hot but not boiling. So when you're canning tomatoes, I like to add salt, and so I do a ½ teaspoon of salt for a pint jar. Salt is optional. It's up to you if you want to include it or not. But you do need to add lemon juice. If you're doing pints, you add a tablespoon of lemon juice. If you're doing quarts, you would add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. This just bumps up the acidification just a little bit so that your tomatoes are safe. So there's my lemon juice and my salt. Now let's grab some of these tomatoes. These tomatoes are warm, but they've been in cold water, so they're not super hot anymore. And all I do, I use one of these little tomato corers or a strawberry corer. Works pretty well. Pull off the lid, pull off the stem. I have an ice cream bucket here because all of this scrap goes out to the chickens. And then I'm just going to pinch the end, and that tomato just pops right out, and I put it in my jar. And I'm going to continue doing this, putting tomatoes in my jar And as it kind of fills up, what you're going to do is you're going to kind of just keep pushing it down so that the tomato fills the jar and the juices kind of flow and it fills up all the spaces in there. You don't want to add water to this. When you add water, it changes things up and you have a different processing time. I never add water to my tomatoes. I feel like I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me to add water to tomatoes. So you just keep going here. These are aroma tomato, which is a paste type tomato. They're meatier and they're a little less juicy and they're just really nice for canning. So, okay, so if you see that, let me wipe my hands off here. You can see I've put the tomatoes in there and I've pushed down to where there's no air spaces in here. Now I'll use my bubble tool just to make sure we get out all of those bubbles. But that's what you want to do. You want to fill that jar up so that there's no air spaces in it. Okay, so the jar is filled with tomatoes. There's no air bubbles in there. The next thing I need to do is, the head space. You need to have a 1/2 inch head space. So you can use this bubble tool to check your head space. And then what you also want to do is run this down in around the sides and make sure, I also push it down in the middle, and you just want to make sure you get all of the air bubbles out. Okay, then you're going to use a paper towel and wipe off the rim of that jar. Tomatoes tends to be a little messier, and so you don't want to have anything on the rim that's going to interfere with your seal. Next thing is you put your lid on. So I have these lids back here in a bowl in some hot water. They're not boiled, they're just in hot water so that they're nice and clean. And then you put a ring on, and that jar is now ready for the canner. So I'm going to go ahead and finish filling all these up. Maybe you'll get a close-up of the next jar that I do so you can see, and then we'll talk about how we process it. Okay, I thought I would get a close-up filling this jar here. I put salt and lemon juice in the bottom of the jar, and so now I'm just going to go ahead and fill in these tomatoes. Peel that stem off, squeeze the skin, and the tomato just pops right out. Oop. Sometimes you have to encourage it a little bit. Push that down. This tomato has some bad spots on it, so I'm going to really just pull that off of there. It was just a bruise on the bottom of it. And actually, I think that's going to be just about right. So now what I want to do is take my bubble tool and make sure I got all the air bubbles out. And then double check that head space. Just kind of push your tomatoes down. Head space looks good. And now, it's very messy. So we're going to wipe that rim off. Make sure we get it nice and clean. Put the lid on. And put the ring on. And now that jar is ready for the canner. So my jars are all filled and I just got them all in the water bath canner. So I'm going to go ahead and lower this down into the water. Make sure the water comes up above the jars, which it did. And I'm going to turn my heat up. And then as soon as that starts coming to a boil, that's when I'm going to start my processing time. Now, I live at high elevation, and because I'm doing the tomatoes in the water bath, the processing time is actually a little bit longer. So I will process for 100 minutes, which is 1 hour and 40 minutes. So the reason that I chose to do it in the water bath today instead of the pressure canner, because remember you can do either, and I'll include the directions for the pressure canner below as far as the processing times and stuff. But I have another project that I'm going to do after this. I'm going to can up some tomatoes and zucchini combined together, and that does need to go in the pressure canner. So rather than do this in the pressure canner and have to wait until that's available to do my next one, I decided to just do the water bath, and then I'm going to go ahead and get started on the next project and do my zucchini and my tomatoes in a pressure canner. So watch for that video, and I hope this was helpful. Again, let's see, what did I not cover? Oh, you process for your processing time, and then you turn your heat off. Let's go over that real quick, because I know I do this in almost every video. But as soon as your processing time is over, you're going to turn your heat off, let the canner rest for 5 or 10 minutes. Then I always take the lid off, and I let it rest for another 5 minutes, pull the jars out of the water, and even then sometimes I'll just leave them in the canner to rest for a while longer before I take them out and put them on the counter. What that does, it just slows down the processing time so you don't get liquid pushing out of your jars, and everything kind of the pressure equalizes out. Is that the right word? And so it's just a good way to do it. So I hope this was helpful. You guys have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you in the next video.